I said, sure I do. I have ideas of moving that into a digital, that was a new word, essentially, digital, into a digital domain, making a pulse code modulation telemetry system instead of this FM stuff. He said, you think you can write it up? I wrote it up. Say, you think you can put together a development plan? I put together a development plan. You think you can run it? I think, yes, I can. I think I can run it. Within a year, I had a 600-man department working, developing the time division digital telemetry system. And that has been the backbone of all space and missile communications ever since. I didn't do it all myself, okay? But I think if it weren't for me at that time at Lockheed, at that stage of development, with Air Force money the way it was coming in, it probably wouldn't have happened at that time, at that stage. Maybe it would be coming later, another year or two. There were other ideas coming up at the same time. So I'm sort of proud of that. I'm proud of being selected by the first NASA administrator to the advisory committee on these things for NASA. And then when all that was going, and I drew up the concept of data compression for multi-channel telemetry and video, and I approached Lockheed management and I said, I think there is an application of this to one segment of communications that's been very underutilized so far, and that's facsimile communications. And they said, facsimile, what do we mean? I said, well, communication of documents, graphics, over communication links. He said, well, then it sounds good, but Lockheed is a very successful government contractor. We will want to stay, we don't want to go into the commercial business. I said, well, would you release the patent to me? He said, yes, it's yours, you can have it. Go with my blessings. So with that, and a partner, an engineer partner, and my secretary, and $7,000, okay, and some $20,000 invested by my boss from Lockheed and a few associates from Lockheed, I opened up a company called Daycom Inc. And I said, our objective is to develop a digital time division facsimile system that will take 1 minute or less per page. That was at a time when everybody was doing 6 minutes or more. So the fact that I was able to make that happen, I think.
You helped develop a fax machine, one of the early ones?
Well, my group developed that whole thing. The fax machine that you see in the market today is a Daycom fax machine which we sold to the Japanese. We sold it under duress. But so there are things that I'm proud of, but they say not necessarily because I did it all, but because I made it happen.
Well, let's tie in everything now with everything you had said before, that whole long war experience. Why do you suppose you managed to survive all that and to go on to do these very good things?
Just lucky, I think. Very lucky. Not particularly the most aggressive fighter, you know. I have tenacity, but I don't have the aggression that it takes to go there and just command it. So when I latch onto something, I'll stick with it. And I was lucky to get into that particular company working during the occupation. And I was lucky to be rescued by Eisenstein, whom everybody hated, in the Axion number 5. And I was lucky to meet Natalie and with her get her and my life together and survive.
How has the whole war experience stayed somehow in your nature or in the back of your mind throughout the rest of your life? In other words, how are you different than another immigrant who didn't go through that?
I think there is one characteristic that I will ascribe to that. I will not allow myself anymore at any time to be put in a situation with no options. So whenever something confronts me, I want to know what options do I have. Not by chance, but by decision. Okay? I don't want anybody else to decide what my life is going to be like.
And then how would you translate all of this into maybe what you've taught your children? In other words, what you would want them to learn from what you and Natalie experienced?
Well, first of all, we did not teach them hatred at any time. Okay? We did not excuse the Germans. We did not forgive the Germans. But we didn't translate that to our kids. Okay? Whenever I have a chance to speak to young people on the subject of Holocaust and the lessons that you derive from it, I stress to them that, in my view, Holocaust succeeded to the extent that it did because it was a government operation run by a government with all the resources of a government. The police, the courts, the armed forces, the Germany of 1930s declared itself the enemy of the Jews and carried out the Holocaust. You know, the individual participants in it fell in, some by happenstance, some by subordinating themselves to orders. But the fact that the whole might, the German machine, was oriented toward the destruction of the Jews was the thing that made that program the success that it was. So my recommendation to the young people is, don't forget your obligations to vote to make sure that no other Hitler gets into power. Make sure that at your local level you don't support any hate organizations. Make sure that you fight them, you know, not physically, but by press, by media, by interviews and so forth, to ridicule them, to make sure that they do not become a factor in the general popular approach. And as far as my kids are concerned, I told them that it's really up to them what they will do with their lives. I don't want to force them one way or the other. I want to influence them, and of course, it looks like we've influenced them pretty well. They each have an education, they each have a nice family, and they're good people.
Well, let's switch and look at the family pictures then next.
Family pictures.
Okay, thank you,
I
Mr.
think
Hochman.
It's my pleasure.
Okay.
This is the one.
It's already
Getting
focused
up
on.
to speed here, and go ahead and tell us who's in that picture and where.
This is a picture of my mother, first name Genya, last name Hochman, then Lanz. This picture was taken in Paris in about 1935.
Getting up to speed. Go ahead, tell us about this picture.
This is a picture of my father, Henrik Hochman. Was taken in New York when he was visiting the city back in 1934 or 35.
Getting up to speed. And go ahead and tell us this picture, please.
This is my uncle, Hune Ringler, who actually is responsible for my upbringing after my parents divorced in 1920 something. This picture was probably taken around 1938 or 39 in Boleslav, Poland.
In your name? Again?
My name is Daniel Hochman.
People you know and their names, if you know the names.
Should I talk now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this picture is a group of Jewish students from the gymnasium in Boleslav, including myself and Jonas Frisch, who sent me the picture. This is myself, and this is Jonas, and these three colleagues are all dead. All the four colleagues are all dead. Picture was obviously taken before 1939, probably, judging by the uniforms, probably 1938.
Getting up to speed. And go ahead, Daniel, tell us about this picture.
This is a class picture of a high school class, gymnasium in Poland, taken about 1937. You can see all the girls in their white blouses and all the boys in the dark uniforms. I am someplace back there, but the guy that I had the confrontation with about being a dirty Jew who approaches Catholic girls is Kochanowski, and he is right here.
Okay, getting up to speed. And Daniel, go ahead, please.
This is a picture of Vladek Grzegorczyk, our savior, being welcomed in Israel by a committee